Everyone saw the halftime show, the lights, the cameras, the music. Millions celebrated it as history in the making, but not everyone knows what happened behind the stage. In the tunnels, the broadcast never showed. I was there, and what I saw explains why some things about the NFL and about Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg can never be spoken in public. The Super Bowl isn't just a football game, it's an empire. A machine that moves billions of dollars, cities, brands, even elections. If you're anywhere near it, you feel the weight of something larger than yourself pressing down. When I got the call to join the production crew for Super Bowl 56, the year the NFL was finally giving hip hop the spotlight, I didn't hesitate. You don't say no to something like that. I wasn't brought in as a star or even a creative. My role was script supervision, which sounds small until you realize how much chaos gets hidden behind those perfect broadcast shots. My job was to track everything. Continuity between rehearsals, the placement of props, timing cues for the performers, making sure no detail broke the illusion. I was the one who made sure the world on stage stayed intact. That year, the halftime show was history in the making. Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg weren't just performers. They were cultural icons reclaiming the biggest stage in America. The NFL tried to dress it up as a celebration, but behind closed doors it was treated more like a gamble. Too political, too risky, too raw. The executives hovered constantly, half in awe, half in fear of what Dre might do live. When I arrived at SoFi Stadium the first day, the scale stunned me. It wasn't just a stadium. It was a city within a city. Tunnels stretching like arteries, sound stages built under bleachers, rooms that smelled like money and secrecy. Everything was guarded, timed, regulated. Security moved like soldiers. Rehearsals ran like military drills. And yet, underneath the order, I felt something else. A current. The way people whispered family, like it was both a promise and a threat. At first, everything felt professional, almost routine. The dancers joked in clusters. Rappers' entourages drifted in and out like shadows, and the production assistants handled chaos like they'd been born in it. I remember thinking, this might actually be easy. But easy doesn't last in the NFL. And it ended the moment Dr. Dre appeared, where he wasn't supposed to be. The first time I saw him, it wasn't during a scheduled rehearsal. Nobody was expecting him. He didn't walk in through the main tunnel where cameras and crew usually tracked arrivals. He was just suddenly there. I was on the Compton set piece, marking notes for camera blocking, when the shift happened. It was like the temperature dropped without the air moving. Conversations didn't die out. They evaporated. Someone mid-laugh cut off with their mouth still open. The clatter of a dropped wrench echoed too loud. Then he stepped onto the stage. Dre wasn't rushing, wasn't performing. He didn't need to. He moved with the stillness of someone who already knew the room belonged to him. Crisp shirt, posture so precise it looked carved. Eyes sharp enough to slice the silence around him. Nobody said his name. Nobody dared greet him. Even the dancers, who had spent days perfecting routines to his music, stood frozen like kids caught sneaking candy. The crew didn't fumble or panic, but they shifted into a strange stiffness, as if holding their breath. And then, out of everyone in that stadium, Dre walked straight toward me. His footsteps didn't echo. I swear to God, in a stadium built to amplify sound, I couldn't hear a thing until he was right in front of me. First week, his voice wasn't loud, but it carried. I nodded, trying to act like my chest wasn't tightening. He smiled. Not the smile you see in old music videos or photo shoots. This one was stretched too wide, too still, like it had been waiting for me personally. You see me, don't you? It wasn't a question. It was something heavier, like a key turning in a lock. I said yes without meaning to. The word fell out of me before my brain caught up. His grin widened, teeth gleaming under the lights, eyes locked to mine. Good. Keep looking. And just like that, he walked away. The room exhaled all at once, people moving again, pretending nothing had happened. But I noticed how a few of the crew members glanced at me with something like pity. A hand squeezed my shoulder. Someone whispered, "That's just how he is." But I knew better. That wasn't how he is. That was something else, something none of us had language for. From that moment, Dre was everywhere. Not during scheduled rehearsals or meetings, always outside the rhythm of the day, always in spaces where he shouldn't be. I'd be restaging props, and in the corner of my vision, he'd appear. Not walking up, not entering, just already there, watching. Sometimes close enough to make my skin prickle, other times across the field, his eyes finding mine with inhuman precision. And when he spoke, it was never casual. It was sharp, chosen, designed to dig in and stay. Once, he asked if I'd been sleeping. I told him no. His reply, "Dreams get louder when you're ready to be seen." Another time in the tunnel, he brushed past me and muttered, "Don't blink too long. I might disappear." Then he laughed, a laugh that didn't sound like joy, but like someone remembering something cruel. And the more I tried to explain it to others, the more their faces tightened. Nobody wanted to talk about it. They weren't skeptical. They were defensive, like I was poking at something they'd all silently agreed not to disturb. Then came the night in the break room. I'd stopped by for a coffee, the place empty except for the hum of a vending machine. On the table was a wig, long braids, styled perfectly in Snoop's signature look. No stylists around, no reason for it to be there. I thought it was a prank until it chuckled. A low, soft laugh, exactly like Snoop's. Familiar but wrong, echoing from a wig that wasn't attached to a head. When I blinked, it was gone. I froze, hand trembling around my coffee cup, waiting for something else to move. Nothing did. Minutes later, another crew member walked in like nothing had happened. That's when Terrence, a production assistant, finally pulled me aside. He leaned close, whispering so no one else could hear. "Don't stare too long." "At Dre?" I asked, desperate for clarity. Terrence shook his head slowly. "At anything." And then he walked away, leaving me colder than before. Rehearsals ended late that night, but I lingered. I told myself I had paperwork to finish, but the truth was simpler. I wanted answers. The tunnels felt different when they emptied. The hum of electricity in the walls, the faint smell of turf mixed with dust, the silence that came after so much sound. I stepped out onto the set, built to look like Compton streets. It was eerie without music, without dancers. The mock houses looked too perfect, too still, like props in a ghost town. And then, without a hand touching a switch, every stage light clicked on in unison. The sudden brightness burned into my eyes. That's when Dre emerged from behind the facade. He wasn't in rehearsal clothes. He wore a black suit, crisp, flawless, like he had dressed for a ceremony I hadn't been invited to. "You came," he said. I couldn't answer. My throat had dried up. He circled me slowly, his movements deliberate, calculated, like he was marking territory. "Do you know what this place really is?" I shook my head. "It's not a set," he whispered. "It's a mirror." He pointed to the glass windows built into the facades. In the reflections, the fake streets looked more real than the stage itself. "Everything here looks like something else. Even me. But you see me, don't you?" I didn't know what he meant, but something in me already understood. This wasn't about being noticed. It was about being consumed. "Just look at me," he said, softer now, almost pleading. And I did. That was my mistake. The lights dimmed into a sickly yellow glow, the edges of the stage blurred like a dream dissolving. My legs moved on their own until I was seated in the director's chair at center stage. Nothing about it felt fake anymore. "You've got a gift," Dre said. "You don't just watch. You witness. I can make that eternal. But only if you keep doing what you do best." "What's that?" I asked, barely able to breathe. He leaned in close, seeing me. And then I noticed it. In the corner of the set, where a prop lamppost should have been, a figure waited. At first, it was just darkness, a shadow cast where no light should have fallen. Then a smile surfaced, teeth sharp white, lips stretched too wide. The more I looked, the more its face flickered. Not Dre, not Snoop, but something trying to be both. I froze, my chest locked up. Dre snapped his fingers in front of my face, the sound jarring. "Don't look at that. Eyes on me." But the figure pulsed, pressing against the edges of reality like it was trying to crawl through. The stage spun like a carousel. My knees buckled, and I collapsed to the floor. Dre stood over me, expressionless, his voice carrying something ancient. "Now," he said, "do you see me?" And I did. I saw not a man, but a hollow shell that needed more than applause. It needed worship. If Dre's presence was heavy, Snoop's was stranger. Everyone expected him to be the lighthearted one, the comic relief of the show. And during rehearsals, he played that role perfectly. He joked with the dancers, slipped nicknames to the crew, even tossed fake joints into the soundboard pit to make the engineers laugh. On the surface, it was classic Snoop. Smooth, cool, untouchable. But when the rehearsals ended, his demeanor changed. I noticed it one night in the tunnels. I was walking back toward the production trailer when I saw him standing perfectly still, half in shadow, wearing his full performance outfit even though the night was long over. His braids hung straight, but his face didn't look alive. His eyes tracked me like glass lenses. No warmth, no recognition. "You looking too close," he muttered. I froze. His voice was different. Not lazy or playful, but low and sharp, like words dragged through gravel. Then, without another word, he laughed. That famous laugh everyone knows, but slower, stretched out, wrong. My skin prickled. When I blinked, he was gone. The next day, during a sound check, I caught him watching Dre from across the stage. Not casually, not like friends, like something waiting for a signal. And Dre, without turning his head, smiled as if he already knew. Later, in the break room, I found the wig again. Snoop's braids laid neatly on the table, even though I knew I'd seen them vanish the night before. I stared at it, heart racing, until the wig shifted slightly like someone invisible was wearing it. That's when I heard the voice. He don't like when you blink. I turned, but no one was there. The wig was gone. And for the first time, I realized it wasn't just Dre feeding off what we saw. Snoop was part of it too. Like two mirrors facing each other, stretching into infinity, trapping anyone who dared look between them. It would be easy to blame Dre or Snoop alone, but nothing at the Super Bowl happens without the NFL's approval. Every second of the halftime show is scripted, timed, rehearsed. And yet, the moments that disturb me most, the lights flickering, the sudden silences, Dre's appearances in places he shouldn't have been, were never questioned. Not once. One night, I stayed late in the production trailer reviewing notes. A monitor still fed live camera footage from the stage. The set was empty, the lights off, but the feed kept rolling. And in the corner of the shot, I saw it. A figure seated in the mock living room, perfectly upright, motionless. The camera picked it up in black and white. The shape didn't move until it glided forward. Not walked, glided. That's when I noticed what it was wearing. A wig. Snoop's braids clear as day. I slammed the monitor off. My hands shook so hard I could barely pick up my pen. The next morning, I walked onto the field pretending nothing had happened. Dre passed me during lunch. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Dreaming again?" Then he smiled. "Don't worry. That's how it starts." Nobody around us reacted. Not the dancers, not the producers, not security. It was like they couldn't hear him. Or worse, they could, and they'd learned not to acknowledge it. And in that moment, the truth snapped into place. The NFL wasn't ignoring it. They were protecting it. The halftime show wasn't just entertainment. It was ritual, and Dre and Snoop weren't just headliners. They were vessels. The next time it happened, it wasn't on the stage. It was beneath it. Sophie's underbelly is a maze that looks logical on a map and predatory in person. Clean concrete, perfect signage, fluorescent lights that hum like they're thinking. I had stayed late again, filing continuity notes, when an operations manager I didn't recognize asked me to walk a drive to the private lounge for a handoff. He didn't wear a badge. He didn't need one. He spoke like people who never hear the word no. We cut down a service tunnel the crew didn't use. The air grew colder as if we were leaving the stadium and stepping into something built first. The hallway curved left even though the building plan said it should have gone straight. The further we walked, the more the light behind us dimmed. I looked back once, just once, and I swear the corridor had shrunk, like the walls moved to discourage the idea of returning. At the end stood a door with no hardware, matte black, not reflective. The ops guy pressed his palm against it, and it opened without a sound. The room beyond wasn't big, no bar, no couches, no framed jerseys. The only furniture was an armored camera bolted into the ceiling's corner, the kind you'd expect in a military bunker. In the opposite corner blinked a red tally light, steady, like a heartbeat that never accelerates. Dre and Snoop were already inside. No entourages, no chatter.
They stood with the stillness of men who had rehearsed silence. Dre's suit was tailored so sharp the fabric seemed to hover a breath above his body. Snoop wore a long coat with the collar pitched up. His braids lay perfectly ordered, more precise than any rehearsal.
"You like to keep records," Dre said, voice calm, as if finishing a conversation I hadn't started. He lifted a silver briefcase from the floor and placed it gently at my feet. "The League likes clean memories." Snoop didn't smile. He watched me the way stadium cameras track a return man who hasn't signaled fair catch. I didn't open the case. I didn't need to. The weight of it said enough. There are numbers you can feel. The kind that don't buy things. They erase them. Dre nodded toward the camera. "He watches through lenses," he said. "Not theatrical, not a metaphor, just a sentence. Recording is the ritual." The ops guy faded into the wall like he'd been dismissed by a thought. I stared at the blinking red light. It didn't belong to electricity. It belonged to attention. I could feel it grazing my face like cold wind through wire mesh. Snoop finally spoke, voice low. The easy drawl sanded down to something precise. "You don't have to look long," he said. "Just don't look away." The door closed behind me without touching air. Dre tapped the briefcase once with 2 knuckles, a signal more than a sound. "Standard protections," he said, "for everyone's sake." He didn't say non-disclosure. He didn't say 7 figures. Those words are for emails. This room didn't use language that leaves trails. I asked the kind of question a person asks when their mouth wants safety and their spine wants truth. "What exactly am I protecting?" Dre studied my face like a screen he was calibrating. "Continuity," he answered. "The world trusts the show to be one unbroken moment. We keep it unbroken." Snoop stepped closer, and for the first time all week I noticed his eyes didn't shine. Stadium fluorescents make everyone glisten, but his pupils drank light and returned none. "The crowd brings the light," he said. "We direct it." The camera's red dot ticked on. Unwavering, indifferent. It didn't care if anyone spoke. It cared that we were here, that the lens had us arranged where it wanted us. Dre angled his face toward the corner, not quite looking into the glass. "He likes symmetry," he murmured. "2 sides, 1 feed." I felt something tighten in the air, a pressure you can't photograph. It reminded me of the first time I walked onto the empty field when the roof was closed. The sense that the sky was closer than it should be, not heavy, deliberate. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you see what makes the picture hold," Dre said. "You notice the objects that shouldn't move." He let the sentence hang. He wasn't speaking about props. Snoop's laugh flickered. One note, restrained, like a test tone. "And now, something is watching to see if you blink." I tried to breathe evenly, and failed. The camera waited the way a question waits. I thought about the PA who had warned me not to stare too long. I thought about the wig that had chuckled and vanished. I thought about the glass on set that turned replicas into originals. "Take the case," Dre said softly. "You won't have to carry it far. Just far enough." I picked it up. It was lighter than it should have been, which made it feel heavier. The handle was cold, with the kind of cold metal doesn't get in climate control. "What happens if I don't?" I asked, before I could stop myself. Dre didn't blink.
Snoop didn't blink. The camera didn't blink. Only the red dot.
Then you keep seeing, Dre said.